writing well is the easy part. Writing memorably is the hard part. What makes this person different, unique, interesting, and see if you can tease out some specifics such that you can craft a compelling story around those data points.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Exact Digital Podcast, where we sit down with the communicators, creators, and consultants who are shaping how we connect in the modern marketing world. Today, I'm joined by Jonathan Rick, a business writing expert, ghostwriter, and speaker who's helped entrepreneurs and organize communicate more clearly, persuasive, and professionally. Jonathan runs his own consulting practice, teaches business writing at a University of Maryland, and has spent more than 15 years sharpening his clients' voices on LinkedIn, in their inboxes, and sometimes on Wikipedia. In this episode, we'll dive into the real fundamentals of strong business writing and why they still matter in the AI age, why I'm following up might be the worst line in your email, how Jonathan balances being a ghostwriter and a public-facing speaker, and why doing less but doing it better can be the ultimate growth strategy. Jonathan, welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. I'm eager to hear my own answers. That was such a great intro and thought-provoking. There's so many things that I like about that. So thank you, Kenzie.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
intrigued.
Absolutely. I mean, you have such a great background, so I had to, share it with everybody. And just know, everybody, when you see some Wikipedia things, it could be him. You describe yourself as a ghostwriter. What kind of writing do your clients typically come to you for?
I'm going to steal a line from one of my colleagues. If you can dream it, I can write it. And their line is truer for them than it is of me. I don't do fiction, and there's certain subjects that are beyond my ken. I specialize in business. So whether it's a Wikipedia page, a white paper, an op-ed, a slide deck, a speech, a resume, a letter, a case study, within the general field of business, I can write it. So clients come to me for a broad range of material on a broad range of subjects within it. I mean, business is large, right? You have energy, education, healthcare, and tech, banking, and so on. So I don't really specialize in a niche beyond business.
Okay, makes sense. So whatever it is, you'll fit right into it and you'll just become their voice.
I hope so. Yeah. I want to be clear that, I think it's important to clarify that I am not a master of all trades, i.e. jack of none. Or what is that? No, let's back up. I am not a jack of all trades, master of none. Sorry about that. I beware of somebody who says, oh, the audience for this is the public or everyone who can read. No, I'm a specialist. I specialize in business, nonfiction. And I think it's important to have the courage to decline certain projects as a ghostwriter, as a freelancer, as a consultant. If you say yes to everything, inevitably the quality of your work will diminish. So there are things that I have on occasion turned down, in which case I refer those folks to others who I trust. And I have a wide lane, let's say, but there are guardrails.
Yeah, that's really important to know what your strengths are and be able to get the client the best result. And even if that strength isn't you, and moving them towards the right direction can be beneficial for both you and the client. So when you're ghostwriting for someone, how do you make sure it still sounds like them and not just clean copy?
Yeah, that's the $64,000 question, and I'm going to give you a counterintuitive answer. It's voice is overrated. To be sure, Tom Wolfe has a voice. Shakespeare had a voice. There are unique and singular writers among us. However, there are most of us, for most people, writing clearly and commandingly is more than enough. Now, I will ask certain clients, I will ask clients upfront a series of questions. Do you prefer conversational or serious tone? Do you like humor? And I'll also listen. Do they make jokes? Do they drop their G's? Do they talk about their kids? Are they very serious and talk only about business? Are they, to what extent does their ego impact their stories? So listening there's no replacement for listening in terms of getting someone's quote unquote voice. But the truth is, and I think most ghostwriters would tell you this, if they're honest, that good writing matters far more than grokking an individual's unique constellation of syllables. The voice is important. That's not what I'm not saying it's unimportant. I'm just saying it's less important than getting their stories nailed down and relaying those stories in a way that's clear and cogent. Nobody's going to say, "Yeah, that writing." I've never had a client once say, "It's too good. I don't write like that." I mean, George W. Bush used to cross out words with a big Sharpie and say, "I would not use that word." And that's okay. Certain people would not use a word. I used the word grok, Grok, earlier. Many people don't use that word. Many people don't use the word sucker, Succor. Those are good examples of knowing a client's voice. But in terms of impersonating them and mimicking their exact patterns of speech, I think that's an overrated expectation.
Absolutely. Because I feel that it is important, obviously, to keep an idea of who they are, but their exact language may not even translate to others. They might not even notice the difference. But just having the foundation is the most important.
Yeah, and I would add one thing to that. As I think about this, clients are not hiring ghostwriters, let's be honest, to sound exactly like the client. They want to sound better. They're hiring a professional to, as you put it in your intro, I think, sharpen their voice. Not necessarily mimic their voice, to make their voice better. Listen, I don't write books, but writing a book is awfully hard. And people hire ghostwriters not only because it's hard, but also because they don't have the time. And so when you hire someone, you pay them a lot of money, you don't want them to write the way you speak necessarily. You want to really sound a little smarter, sound a little better. You used several alliterations in your introduction. Those don't roll off the tongue naturally. So you're hiring a ghostwriter to stylize your voice, to polish it and professionalize it, not in a way that's unrecognizable, but in a way that's smart.
Absolutely. All right. So walk us through your process. How do you usually onboard new clients or projects? And what do you need up front to do your best work?
Great question. So there are two things. I want questions answered, and I want to talk with you. I know that sounds a little harsh. I to do my best work requires collaboration. And so, for example, if we're writing an op-ed, I need to know what sort of tone you prefer. Do you want formal or do you want conversational? And embedded within that question are a range of considerations. Do you like contractions? Do you like humor? Do you talk about? Do you relate personal anecdotes? And the second part of the second sort of thing that I ask for is that conversation, which helps me expand upon the first question. I can glean so much from a conversation. And you can tell, we've been talking for 10 minutes. You can tell sort of what kind of person I am. I like humor. I'm unafraid of being bold or sarcastic. So if I didn't relay those things, that tells me just as much. The things that it's not only I'm listening for things not only that you say, but also for things that you don't say. Do you scratch your chin and pause, and are you contemplative? Do you speak in fully formed sentences because you're slow and thoughtful, or are you a mile a minute and you're sort of like Michael Scott trying to think of the answer to the question as you're speaking and hope that you'll eventually get there. So I like to ask a couple questions by email. For example, who's the audience for this document that we're working on? What is the document's thesis in a single sentence? Not its purpose, but what do you want? excuse me, what do you want someone to do after they read it? And then, conversational or formal tone. That's number one. And then and I want those. I like to see how someone communicates in writing, to be honest, before we start working together. And then I want to talk with them. I want to see, basically, think of the questionnaire, and I've used that term loosely. Think of the questionnaire as a cover letter, and then the conversation as a resume. The resume helps you, put some meat on those bones.
That's amazing. Because, for example, I say like all the time, and I'm probably a little bit more of a relaxed conversationalist. So you would just kind of read me, and because people say a lot more about themselves than you would think. And thinking in terms of campaigns and advertising, when you're talking to clients, it's really important just to talk about their life, not just their business. Of course, business is really important, but just get to know them first and understand who they are, the kind of person they are, so that you can understand what relationship you will have, how you're going to go about their voice and ad copy and creative, if you're going to be able to be a little bit more fun and have some funny videos, or if somebody's going to be more serious. It's super important to just flesh out some personal things as well.
Yeah, yeah. The personal stuff. I mean, anybody can write well. To write memorable. I shouldn't say anybody can write well. Writing well is the easy part. Writing memorably is the hard part. And what I tell my students, you mentioned that I've been teaching at the University of Maryland for I think 13 years in the fall. I have 19 students per semester. Ask my students, how will you make your homework stand out from that of your peers? And the same thing is true. If I'm writing an op-ed, you got to put it by an editor who can accept or reject it. If you're writing, self-publishing a piece on LinkedIn, how will you draw engagement? And I mean, it's a huge subject. We could spend a lot of time on it, but suffice it to say that the word you use, personality, is paramount. There's that alliteration. You really want to, much less than rocking their voice. You want to understand what separates them, what makes this person different, unique, interesting, and see if you can tease out some specifics such that you can craft a compelling story around those data points.
Absolutely. So, have you ever been brought in mid project, like a campaign or launch, and had to quickly speed things up? Or what made that work or not work?
Yeah, yeah, it's with some frequency, clients will uh shall we say, be unhappy with their ghostwriter, and they will say, "Listen, we need to hire somebody else. It's not working. We need to make a change." Other times, for whatever reason, relationships don't work out. And I'll give an example from Wikipedia. Wikipedia is a big part of my business, and I'd say about a third of clients for Wikipedia hire me after having hired someone else. And a lot of the consultants for Wikipedia overpromise and underdeliver. They promise the moon, and then their work inevitably gets rejected. And basically, folks try to hire someone on the cheap, and that backfires, and they come to me. And the truth is that makes my job harder, because the hole has already been dug a little bit, and we sort of have to stop digging. Number one, and then course correct. So it's not an ideal situation, but it happens with enough regularity that I know how to couch the conversation. Listen, I'm sorry. This was last year. A client had hired someone, and I just felt so bad for her because they promised her a guarantee, and it ended in disaster. And I had to sort of point out, you didn't actually hire Wikipedia. Wikipedia doesn't make its editors for sale. You got to hire an external consultant. And I said, yeah, you can tell this logo is complete nonsense. It was, I won't get into details, but suffice it to say that you got to have a lot of empathy for people when a relationship does not succeed and you're coming in midstream. You have to balance respect for the situation, for lack of a better way to put it. You have to say, I understand things didn't work out. You don't want to badmouth the previous guy. And you also want to, you don't want to, necessarily treat the client differently. Maybe it wasn't their fault that the relationship didn't work out. So always give people the benefit of the doubt, and try to assess the situation without any pre-existing judgments. Every client is different, and I think your goal is to A, stop digging if they're in a ditch, and B, remedy the situation in and usually as speed is usually important. You don't want to say we're going to start with an audit. Well, they just had an audit. They paid some guy 6 months for 6 months of work. So your process might be disrupted. And so empathy is important, understanding what you're getting into, where they are starting from, trying to repair the bridge. I think if you talk with any consultant at I'd say the peak of their game, they would say that in part their job is a little bit of therapy. Sometimes people just want to be listened to. I had a colleague who writes books, and I think a lot of his job is listening to people just vent, go on and on about stories that really are not too relevant or not going to end up in the book, but he can gain a greater sense of not only who they are, but he can also just allow them space and time to talk freely, and that's important.
Absolutely. That's such a great message because a lot of times, unfortunately, people do get burned, whether it be from a ghostwriter or trying to place advertisements, and people just they didn't have the right communication skills. It could have been their thing, it could have been the person they hired's issue, but you never know. So just hearing people out and trying to have the most positive thought and outlook. And if it turns out that it's not working anymore, be free to say, hey, I noticed this. Maybe this could be the reason that the issue happened, and then actually have a solution to go along with it rather than accusing them of something.
Yeah, yeah. There are clients who are clearly red flags that they start by saying, "Listen, you're the fourth person I've spoken with. I'm really hoping this one will work out." You're entitled to bring some skepticism to that project, but most people, for whatever reason, just had a bad experience. And they're looking for someone to remedy a bad situation.
Absolutely. So, going back to what we had mentioned a little bit before, you've taught business writing at the University of Maryland for, you said, now 13 years coming up in the fall. So, what's one principle you wish more professionals embraced?
Huh. Uh, Good question. I'm buying time now,
Yeah,
Kenzie,
go for
while
it.
I think about
Learn.
this. Uh, I'm going to say email etiquette. Yeah, this drives me. Well, let's leave aside my personal opinion here, but I wish. I think it's unfortunate that more professionals don't communicate professionally, and I mean something very specific. I'm talking about email. Email is not text. Email is a strategic form of communication intended to achieve a specific objective. I'm emailing you for one of two reasons. One, FYI, thought this article would be interesting, or number two, I need some information from you. A response requested. I need you to review this. I need to know what time you're going to be here. I need to know, if you can send me that bio you promised me a week ago. And what I mean specifically is give me some sort of introduction, give me some sort of greeting. Good morning, Kenzie. How hard is that? And then don't just say, can you send me that thing you owe me? Say, I hope you had a nice Easter weekend if you so celebrate. So that's the pleasantry part of this. You got a greeting, then a pleasantry, and then a closing, or excuse me, a sign off. So GPS is the strategy that I use. Good morning, Kenzie. I hope you had a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much for your consideration. GPS, greeting, pleasantry, sign off. And it pains me that so many people dispense with those niceties. They just cut to the chase, get to the point. They say, "Oh, I'm busy. I don't have time for this. You're busy. I'm busy." Just cut to the chase. And the reason I think this is a problem is because we're inundated with emails. I mentioned earlier that it's important to stand out in a good way. Um, when your name appears in my inbox, I don't want to scowl because I know you're going to be asking for something, or I know it's going to be a rude or abrupt email. I want to smile instead of scowl. I want to say, "Oh, this is Kenzie emailing me. I know she's going to ask about my twin daughters." Or I know she's going to say, "I hope you have, how's your how's your swimming going? Or, you mentioned that you are going to a baseball game on Friday. I hope the Nationals win. Something, those small little details can strengthen a relationship in a way that really matters. You'll often read stories about politicians who pride themselves on always remembering a name, especially if it's a donor, or never missing a staffer's birthday. These are the small details that we think nothing about in person. Yet all too often, when we're sitting behind typing at our keyboard or typing with our thumbs on our phone, we 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 utterly neglect these details, and I think that's a shame.
Absolutely, because it makes such a difference when you can remember something like Jonathan actually swam in the town that I live in currently, and he has 2 twin daughters, which has slowed down his moving process, so we were able to talk about that a little bit, and when someone remembers something so tiny, it makes you feel like you are important to them. And then even if you're looking at digital advertising, people your customers want to feel like they're special and remembered. So if you're addressing something that someone has said or there's an issue or something positive, you can address that in that advertising. You can address that in that conversation and it makes people feel special. And if you're talking about retargeting or you're sending an email marketing chain, if someone has only shopped for sunglasses at your store and they've loved these sunglasses, they've expressed all of their care for them and the design, and continue that conversation. Ask them, how have those sunglasses been going for you? Don't just sell them and say, hey, what about these socks?
Exactly. Yeah. See, we do these things in person, and we think nothing of them. They're second nature. Yet for some reason, behind the cloak of a computer screen, we we don't think they're important. And I mean, there's like a Gen X or whatever, the young kids are called these days, study that says they are offended when the other person uses a period at the end of a sentence. That's like passive aggressive. What in the world are you talking about? No, 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 no. I get offended with typos. And I mean, maybe I am a little too sensitive in this regard, but I think how you write matters. I want to communicate with someone who, at least takes the time to say hello. I don't need a good morning. How are you? I hope, you're not, in mourning because the Patriots lost last night. But I do need some sort of pleasantry. Give me something. And most important, a little gratitude goes a long way. Just say thank you. I understand that's what the money's for. And I'll give you an example. Uh, I want to work as a freelancer. I want to work with people who I enjoy, whose company I enjoy. And the easiest way to do that is just to be nice and pleasant via email. That makes my day easier. It makes me want to work harder for you. If you're very abrupt in an email, at a certain point, I may respond in kind, and that's not fun for me. I wanna be in a good mood when interacting with you. And it'll cost you an extra 30 seconds. You have an extra 30 seconds. And I would encourage, not you, Kenzie. I'm using you broadly. I would encourage people to spend a few extra seconds just making sure that email is not only typo free, but pleasant and friendly.
Absolutely. It's funny that you say that. I am a recovering explanation mark overuser for sure. I used to fear the periods, but I'm working through it. It's proper grammar, but yeah. So there's different things that feel tied to different people. So just being aware of that, like now that I told Jonathan, I'm expecting my next email to have all the exclamation marks in the world. So you mentioned that public speaking and writing require different muscles. How do you balance and develop both?
Yeah. They're totally different. I think that's my answer. And the truth is, some people are a lot better at one than the other, and that's okay. You don't have to master them both. Some of the smartest writers I know are lousy speakers, and that's okay. When I hire an electrician to put a light bulb, or excuse me, to install a recessed light in my ceiling. It's okay that he doesn't patch and then paint that hole, that he actually leaves me with a hole in my ceiling that I then have to hire a painter to repair. Why? Because I want specialists, not generalists. Um, it's okay when you hire a writer or excuse me, let me rephrase. When you hire a Wikipedia consultant like me, that that consultant doesn't help you get earned media. That consultant doesn't help you pitch the press to get your profiles that Wikipedia editors require in order to pass the general notability guideline. Um, I think it's okay that people are excellent at one thing, that they specialize. You can be an excellent public speaker or you can be an excellent writer. You don't have to be excellent at them both. I'm sure I'm better at one or the other. You'd have to ask more objective observers as to which I'm better at, speaking or writing. I think I'm pretty good at both. I love doing them both, and I have built my business on the back of two income streams. But that is rare. Most professional writers are not good speakers, even though they may get paid a lot of money. They don't know how to captivate a room, to work an audience, to create a PowerPoint presentation. They know how to weave together a story. They know how to create messages. They know how to tease out information from an unwilling interviewee, but they may not know how to interact with an audience in a way that means you're not just lecturing at them for 30 minutes.
Absolutely. So, in your experience, where do most businesses go wrong with content, especially when they're trying to sound professional?
Another good question. Where do they go wrong when they're trying to sound professional? Well, I think maybe one way to answer this is there's always a war between advertising and let me put it this way, between advertisers and grammarians. Um, that is to say, remember that phrase, got milk? That is grammatically incorrect. It should be, do you have milk? And any English teacher worth his salt would tell you that got milk is problematic. But advertisers operate by a different calculus. They want engagement, they want eyeballs, they want attention. And so I think when you ask how do we sound more professional, that is not necessarily a good thing. You want to maintain your brand, and you have certain guidelines. If you're a law firm, you're probably not going to engage in a lot of levity. If you're a startup, the risk is the opposite. And so I would say that it's okay to say got milk. It's okay to say, I didn't McDonald's used to say loving it, LOVIN apostrophe. I'm sure there are other examples that I can't think of, but my advice is to not let yourself be straitjacketed by adherence to a rigid set of dogmas, like don't end a sentence with a preposition or never use contractions. Make your message resonate.
Absolutely. That's exactly the answer I was looking for because, a lot of people get stuck in that, got to sound professional. People work with you for you. So stick with it. Don't try to act like you are this untouchable person because, in all actuality, people are starting to want to connect with the owner, CEO, whatever they may be, and kind of bust through that curtain of professionalism and see your real true personality. And if your true personality is professional, then that's okay too. But if it's a little sillier, if it's a little more sarcastic, if it's a little bit more childish, or you want to sound a little bit older, like an old soul, theoretically, or whatever it may be, lean into it.
Yeah, 100%. I have a friend who, what is she? Oh, she would say that she double taps on your comment, I think. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Yes, like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's what I took away from it. She would double tap on it. Yeah, I second, I support, I endorse what you just said wholeheartedly.
Double tap on it. I like
Double
that.
tap.
So, are there any particular types of teams or industries where you found your voice writing style really click? I know you work in the um, business nonfiction section, but is there any like industries or teams?
I like to think that I click with all clients. I think I work best with clients who are smart and interesting. I think that's when I produce my best work. When uh, the clients hire me either because they don't have the time or they don't have the talent. And Obviously, there's a lot of trust involved. But I'll give an example. Nobody likes extra work. Let's be honest. You want someone who gives you a check and says, "Great, end of story." I have a client. I'm working with this person on a series of op-eds, and this person has come back multiple times. What about this? What about that? Can we say this? Can we do that? And I'll be honest, I resented the first 4 rounds because usually op-eds are limited to two. Um, but let me also be honest and tell you that each revision made the draft better. And the client was right that this person was pointing out weaknesses in the argument. Places where we had cut corners, or places where the argument wasn't as strong as it needed to be, or places where we could add a couple sentences. And so I like working with smart people who challenge me. I want someone, to be honest, who really doesn't maybe say this is great, done. And I like the kudos. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I want the attaboys and pats on the back. But I like clients who say, let's rethink this paragraph. I think this intro is not really where I want it to go. And I'll tell you one more thing. Um, I like direct candor. I don't like beating around the bush. If something misses the mark, tell me. Don't say, yeah, this is good, but say, nope, I want to go in a different direction here. I am a ghostwriter. I am a hired gun. You can't have an ego as a ghostwriter because you're selling your pen. This is not my work, and this is for the client. I want this to be in their strike zone. I want them to not only be happy but super happy. And the only way that's going to happen is if I understand what's truly in their heart. So if you don't like something, be honest with me. Say, Jonathan, uh, this paragraph isn't working for me. Here's why. Here's what I would like instead.
I'm sure it makes it easier since you're really smart and interesting. So you can just lean into yourself there.
I don't think I'm really smart. No, no. Let me disabuse you of this notion. I am, I think, generally well educated, but I don't think I'm super smart. No, and I
That's
think
what a
this may
smart guy
be.
would say, though.
No, I think I what I tell clients is I am not an expert in your particular field, and that's a good thing because I'm generally well educated. So if I can understand what it is we're talking about, then so will your reader, because you're not writing for fellow PhDs. You're writing for, let's say, legislators or executives or potential customers. They are not experts in this field. They don't want to know that your phone has the new Intel A7.3 super chip with AI NVIDIA graphics power capability. They want to know that it's fast. And that's, I think, where I can help most. I can help translate the jargon into plain language.
Right. And collaboration is everything in a creative space because we're the experts in what we're the experts in, but they are the experts in what they are. So putting your heads together and really making sure that you're getting the best results and pushing aside that ego and realizing that you're trying to get something to work. And they obviously know what they're talking about. I always say the smartest person in the room is willing to accept when they don't know something. So if you just sit there and you like there's the whole the theory of the bell curve, like the less knowledge you know, the more you think you know. So if you just continue up that hill, you realize, "Oh my gosh, I don't know anything. I need to learn way more." So everybody keep that in mind for personal reasons too.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much that I like, and there's so much good stuff in what you just said. I mean, I think good ghostwriting is inherently collaborative. Now there are times where an executive says, "Listen, I'm delivering a speech on Thursday. Write it for me, and I'll deliver it," and that certainly comes up. But the best work comes from a collaboration because you, the client, are the expert in the material. What's called the SME, the subject matter expert. I am the storyteller. I help give voice to your vision, and those two
Absolutely.
things are symbiotic.
100%. So, have you ever worked alongside any ad agencies or digital marketing teams before? And what kind of collaboration setup do you think gets the best results?
Short answer, plenty. I worked with a wide variety of agencies. I think I'm going to answer your question in a reverse way. I'm going to tell you what gets the worst results. Um, Too many cooks in the kitchen. I think what many of my peers would tell you is when you get a chief of staff, a PR director, the client's spouse, and the vice president of bureaucracy involved, you get a camel, which is a horse created by committee. The best work is not a product of one, sometimes not even a product of two, but three editors is a good number of eyeballs on something. Once you start exceeding three and you start getting rounds of revision from all sorts of external reviewers, then I think the job becomes more about project management than about editorial excellence. Now, I'm not averse to reviews. I think it's important that you ask around and get a lot of opinions. I want to be clear in what I'm saying. I think it's important that the client make clear to the ghostwriter whose opinions are mandatory, whose opinions are you need to implement, and whose opinions are nice to implement. Whose voice is mandatory. If they say change a comma to a semicolon, you need to do it, and whose opinion you can say, well, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but not going to do it that way. So too many clicks in the kitchen is a way to engender bad results. And I think anybody who's been in this industry long enough will tell you horror stories of, after they finished a 6 month project, some late breaking consultant who the client trusts gets involved and says, I know we wanted to talk about creativity, but I'm thinking basketball is the way to go. um, and that's happened before, and that is, I think, a preventable problem.
Absolutely. Because, like you said, three is good because you have somebody to get that middleman like job and kind of see both sides. But then once you start adding more and more people, then all completely different opinions come in and the job keeps jumping from place to place and you can't complete it. You're going in so many different directions. And although there might be really good advice, maybe you can test that later. But now it's good to just start with something that's solid.
Yeah, yeah. Also, track changes just becomes a bloodbath with like five people, and the real fun begins when two of the reviewers contradict each other.
Absolutely. So you said you're not building an empire and just fulfilling a practice. But if you were to expand your reach, what kind of partnerships or projects would you be open to?
Yeah, so just to clarify, I have no interest in hiring employees. That is what I meant by building an empire in our, I think, pre-interview. I'm a one-man band. I don't use subcontractors, but I do partner with a variety of agencies and other freelancers. We have referral networks, and I'm open to business wherever it comes from. I think in terms of expanding my reach, I like the variety of projects I work on. No, the cliche is no 2 days are the same. So whether I'm, on Monday I'm editing a Wikipedia page, on Tuesday I'm developing a slide deck, on Friday I'm drafting an op-ed. I like that variety, and on, let's say, Thursday I'm delivering a workshop on news releases. I like that variety, and I think in expanding my reach for potential partners, I'm open to all comers.
Great. I think that that is really important to focus on. I know we've mentioned it a lot in here, but focusing on our expertise and really just working together because not to sound sappy or anything, but that's what I think the world is about. I think that we all have different unique strengths for a reason, and working together is much smarter because if you just try to become a generalist and stretch yourself way too thin, then no one's actually going to get some clear results. Like if you are a child and you're playing 5 different sports, you might get really, really good at a couple of those, but it's going to be difficult for you to get perfect at one of them and go to the national championship or become an Olympian if you're not just focusing on that one or two that might go together. So it's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you could give one piece of advice to marketers or consultants trying to communicate better, what would it be?
Hmm. One piece of advice. One piece of advice to marketers or communicators trying to communicate better. Is it
Yes.
okay? Uh, I think I. This is the first thing that occurs to me. Care more. Um, I agonize when writing over the perfect word. Many people will dash off an email, and after they're done with the first draft, they'll click send. Not me. I will go through several drafts. I will, in writing something that's due on Thursday, I will not, and even if I finish it on Tuesday, I won't send it on Tuesday. I'll give myself another day to review it with fresh eyes. Care more about the quality of your work and specifically uh, how each word matters. Each comma. We talked about email etiquette. You may dash off a reply because you want to get it out of your inbox, but then save it in your drafts folder and come back to it in an hour or later that afternoon, and then add good morning or add a thank you or add if I understand you correctly. If you're developing a PowerPoint presentation, don't settle for the first image that comes up when you Google something. Go to the second page of Google search results or Shutterstock or Adobe Stock. Agonize over finding not only the perfect word, but also the perfect picture. If you're working with a Wikipedia client, make sure before you tell somebody, that they are not notable, really dig into their coverage and see if a case can be made holistically for their prominence. In other words, care more. There's no shortcut to excellence. There's no shortcuts in life, really. I believe. I'm sure you can get lucky, but I believe that you should care about your craft and spend a little extra time making sure that what you do is worthy of the price you're charging.
Absolutely. Because everything worth doing in life takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Jonathan, this has been such a thoughtful conversation. Your perspective on business writing, brand voice, and communication in a noisy digital world is something a lot of people need to hear right now. So, if anyone wants to learn more about Jonathan or check out his services, head to jonathanrick.com and maybe click on a few of those classic old photos from his early speaking days.
Thank you. Yeah, but you won't recognize me because I had hair. I also don't look like a ghost. I'm very pale. I'm seeing right now.
It's all
Uh,
right. Summer's coming. You have time.
Kenzie, thank you so much for your time. This was a true pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining me. And thank you guys for listening.